What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Fantasy Breakdown. We are coming at you with our 7 picks for the Week 9 waiver. I know it's a bit late. Had a migraine yesterday, couldn't really look at any computer monitors, but we are feeling better today, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into it with our first player. He was also our first player last week, and that is going to be Joe Flacco. He's been a top 6 fantasy quarterback these last 2 weeks, putting up 24 plus fantasy points. This week he was facing up a pretty banged up Bears secondary, so if his shoulder injury that he picked up last week isn't affecting him too much, I would definitely expect him to have a pretty good game. But if his shoulder injury does affect him, I think that it could have him play a little bit poorly. So that is why I'm a bit weary on picking him up this week. But so far on the season, Joe Flacco is averaging 13.6 fantasy points a game, with 95 total fantasy points, 9 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Next up, we have Tyrone Tracy Jr. He was the starting running back last season for the Giants, and he is in the line to take over as the running back one again, with the unfortunate injury that happened with Cam Scatterboo. Last week, Tyrone he handled 7 of the 9 running back carries after the injury, and he led the team in the team's backs and targets last week when it came to the pass game. Now, the reason why I am a little bit keen on him is because the Giants seem to be using the running game a little bit more, especially when they had Scatterboo. But that might change a little bit now, but definitely someone to look at who definitely put up, with him putting up, 14 plus fantasy points in the last 7 times last season. Definitely someone I would look at here. So far on the season, Tracy does have 6.9 fantasy points a game, 38.7 total fantasy points, and 1 touchdown. Next on our list, we have Tyjae Spears. Now, Tony Pollard is still the starter for the Titans, but in terms of fantasy, Tyjae Spears seems to have taken over, or has started to take over. And in 2 of the last 3 matchups that the Titans had, Spears has outscored Pollard. Now, unfortunately, I don't have that exact number on hand. But Spears is someone that I would prioritize if you're very desperate at running back. So far, Spears has put up 8.7 fantasy points a game, with 34.6 fantasy points and 1 touchdown. Next up on our list, we have Bam Knight. Definitely someone to pick up if you need a if you need a running back for the week. Definitely not a great long-term pickup, with Trey Benson able to come off of IR starting next week. But he does have a really favorable matchup against the Cowboys, who have given up an average of 28 fantasy points to running backs so far this season. Now, could we see him put up close to 28 fantasy points? Yes, but also there's that chance that he could end up putting less up, but I'm definitely banking on him putting up more. And week 7, Bam Knight did see the most playing time going into before the bye week. And with Michael Carter back on the practice squad, I could definitely see Bam Knight taking over most of the work. Now, so far on the season, Knight has 6.2 fantasy points a game with 31.2 fantasy points and only 2 touchdowns, but definitely could see a really good game this week. Next up, we have Kayshon Boutte. I hope I'm saying that right. He is the most productive wide receiver that isn't rostered in most leagues. He is averaging 18.8 fantasy points a game in the last 3 games, while having 4 touchdowns in the span of 3 games. I think the long-term upside for this season is a little too significant to be ignored, but he does face a tough matchup this week against the Falcons. So far on the season, Kayshon Boutte has 12 fantasy points a game with 96 total fantasy points and 5 touchdowns. We could maybe see him put up close to 200 fantasy points if the play from Drake May stays the way that it has been all season. Definitely someone to keep an eye out on, and if he's not picked up in your league, I would definitely snag him up off of waivers before anyone else does. Next up, we have Christian Watson. He did play in his first game of the season last week, and he caught all 4 passes for 84 yards. Now, outside of Romeo Doubs, I don't think a Packers wide receiver really has come forward to become a true number 2 target. And Watson could definitely be that guy if he stays consistent and his knee surgery doesn't affect him the way that it in any negative ways. But someone I am looking at possibly picking up as well. So far, even though it has been 1 game, Watson does have 12.5 fantasy points a game with 12.5 fantasy points, no touchdowns, but I think we could see him put up a little bit more production and become a true number 2 receiver up in Green Bay, kind of like how Troy Franklin has been looking to become out there in Denver. Next, and I believe last, we have Mason Taylor. Now, he was on a bye week this week, but I still think he should be considered for, picking up for your roster. He is a young player in his rookie season with the potential to become a fantasy football stud. Kind of like how prime Kelsey was a few years ago, or even where's Kittle when Kittle is healthy. He ranks 7th among tight ends and target share at 18.5%. And last week he was targeted 5 times in the red zone, which I think is the tied for most any player has seen in a single game. Now, with him getting his first touchdown of the season, definitely someone to look at picking up, maybe stashing. If you have only 1 tight end on your roster and that tight end is looking like he might be going on a bye week soon. Mason Taylor so far has 7.7 fantasy points a game on average, with 61.2 total fantasy points and 1 touchdown. If his production does end up picking up, I could definitely see him getting closer to 150, maybe 160 fantasy points, which isn't too bad for a rookie tight end. And Mason Taylor is the last player that we have on our list. And if you guys did find this helpful, be sure to go ahead and leave that like. And if you do have any comments and you think there's someone that I did miss, go ahead, let me know down below in the comment section. And if you did find these picks to be useful, and they did, and sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I hope these picks here definitely help you win your matchups this week. If not, they help you in the long run. This has been the Fantasy Breakdown. I will catch you guys next week. Later.